My dear child, there is a quiet strength in the earth, and it hides in the humble things. Not always in the thunder, but often in the whisper. Not in the grand cathedral, but sometimes in the tiny grain resting in your hand. Salt, yes, salt. We season our food with it. We preserve what we love with it. We wash wounds with it. We cry it from our eyes when we're hurt, and we sweat it from our brow when we labor. Salt. That old ancient thing. That sacred powder of the sea and of the soul. Now I need you to listen to me. Real close. There is power in salt, baby. Not just the kind that lifts flavor from blandness, but the kind that lifts spirits from brokenness. The kind that sanctifies a home and calls angel to the room. You see, in every grain of salt, the earth has kissed the divine. Oh yes, salt carries memory, salt carries mystery, salt carries majesty. And if you got just a little faith, even a mustard seed of belief, you can walk through your home and speak with authority. You can shake that salt in places where darkness thought it had a lease, where sadness set up shop, where confusion built a nest. And that salt, hallelujah, that salt will say, no, not here. This house is blessed. When God first reached down and stirred the dust into man, he whispered eternity into the breath. But before he even made man, before the stars were flung and the seas were tamed, there was salt. Salt, beloved, was present when the oceans were born and the rivers learned how to weep. It is ancient. It is holy. It is everlasting. It has survived flood and famine, war and wilderness. You see it on your table, you sprinkle it on your meal, and you may think it's just a seasoning. But, oh child, salt is more than flavor. It is a symbol of the sacred. Let me speak gently to your spirit. This world will try to convince you that the divine must always come grand, robed in lightning, announced with trumpets. But God often moves in whispers, in shadows, in the quiet grace of the ordinary. That's where salt lives. In the humble bowl beside your stove, in the tear that rolls down your cheek during prayer, in the sweat that beads on your forehead when you work honestly for your daily bread. That's salt too. Salt carries our labor, our lament, and our love. Salt has known the touch of the divine since the beginning of time. In the Old Testament, the Lord spoke to his people and said, "Season all your grain offerings with salt. Do not leave the salt of the covenant of your God out of your grain offerings. Add salt to all your offerings." Now, why would God ask for salt? Because salt represented something permanent, something pure, something preserving. It wasn't just a ritual, it was a holy agreement, a sacred promise sealed not with gold, but with something even more enduring. Salt, that quiet covenant maker, became a divine witness between heaven and earth. I once knew a grandmother wise and weathered by time. Her eyes held the strength of centuries, and her hands moved like prayer. She didn't have a university degree, but she had knowledge written in her soul. When storms rolled over her house and thunder rattled her windows, she would walk the floor with salt in her hand and scripture in her mouth. She would sprinkle that salt at the doorway and speak not with fear, but with authority. She'd say, "Devil, you've got no business here. This house belongs to God." And let me tell you, peace would come. Not because of superstition, no, but because faith turned that salt into a declaration, a banner of holiness in the face of chaos. Salt has no scent, but it has presence. It has no color, but it has character. It is silent, but it speaks volumes. It whispers to the soul, "I preserve what is good. I fight what is rotten. I carry what is sacred." In a world that is loud with lies and weighed down by noise, salt remains consistent, steady, pure. Don't you know, child, that you too are meant to be salt? Didn't Jesus say, "You are the salt of the earth"? That wasn't just poetry. That was purpose. That was power. He was telling you that just like salt heals wounds and brings flavor, your presence is meant to preserve truth, to add meaning, to stop the rot of this world's cruelty. Salt doesn't shout. It just works. quietly, faithfully, like a woman praying in the dark, like a mother fasting for her son, like a man on his knees when no one's watching. Salt teaches us that holiness doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be flashy. Sometimes the holiest things are the most unassuming. A grain of salt, a widow's coin, a mustard seed of faith. That's God's language, small things that carry big blessings. You see, the people of old didn't just cook with salt. They consecrated with it. They healed with it. They made covenants with it. And when the word says something is a covenant of salt, it means it is eternal. It means it cannot be broken, even by the passing of time or the wear of the wind. That is how seriously the divine regards it. We live in a time now where everything is fast and fleeting. Promises are made and broken before the ink dries. People chase the new and discard the old like yesterday's bread. But salt, sweet, silent salt, reminds us that some things are meant to endure. Some truths cannot be erased. Some commitments are carved not in stone, but in spirit. That's what makes salt sacred. It doesn't spoil. It doesn't fade. It holds. When you sprinkle it, do it with intention. Don't just reach for the shaker. Reach with understanding. Whether you're seasoning your meal or placing salt by the doorway of your home, remember you are handling a symbol of God's constancy. You are touching something He touched. You are placing your faith in the lasting things, not the fading things. And that is beautiful. That is holy. So the next time you see salt, don't just see food. See faith. See history. See God's hand stretched out through time saying, I am with you in the simple things. I am with you in the small. I am with you in the everyday. I sanctify what you surrender. And when you walk through your house with a little bowl of salt, whispering prayers, know that heaven hears. Know that the angels lean in. Know that what you do in the natural, God honors in the spiritual. Your home becomes a tabernacle. Your floor becomes holy ground. And your spirit begins to shine with the flavor of righteousness. Salt, my dear, is not just for the tongue. It is for the soul. It is sacred. And so are you. There are moments in life, quiet and golden, when the soul grows still and the spirit leans forward. In those moments, you don't need a cathedral or a choir. You don't need a pulpit or a prophet. All you need is a whisper, a grain of salt, and a prayer birthed from the depths of your belly. That, my dear, is enough to open the gates of heaven and invite the Holy of Holies into your humble home. People think prayer has to be loud to be heard. They think it must be long to be powerful. But I have seen miracles fall like gentle rain on those who simply said, Lord, help me. I have seen peace flood a room where a mother said nothing but, Jesus, with salt in her hand and tears in her eyes. You see, prayer is not about volume. It is about truth. It is about standing naked before your Creator and offering what you have, whether that's a song or a sigh. Salt and prayer, when brought together, are like earth and heaven meeting at the altar of your need. One represents the natural, the ground you walk on, the food you eat, the tears you cry. And the other, the supernatural, the unseen strength, the divine touch, the breath of the Almighty. When you bring them together, something sacred occurs. The ordinary becomes holy, the house becomes sanctuary, and the God who formed the stars leans in close enough to hear the whisper of your soul. Oh, I know something about this. I've walked through homes where it clung to the walls like smoke, where the air was heavy with arguments and rooms echoed with loneliness. But I've also seen what happens when someone walks those same floors with a bowl of salt and a spirit of prayer, not in panic, not in fear, but in bold, trembling faith. They sprinkle salt in the corners, near the windows by the door, and all the while they whisper, Lord, cleanse this place. Chase out what does not belong. Dwell here with me. And let me tell you, things begin to change. Because you are not simply tossing grains of seasoning. You are releasing symbols. You are placing reminders of covenant. You are declaring with every step and every sprinkle that your home is not just a shelter. It is a place of peace, a house of light, a dwelling fit for the Spirit of God. The power is not in the salt alone. It never has been. Salt without faith is just a mineral. Prayer without heart is just sound. But salt mixed with belief, mixed with reverence, mixed with the fire of a sincere prayer. Now that child is where transformation lives. That is where chains break, where confusion lifts, where heaviness begins to float off the walls like fog burned away by morning light. I remember a woman, her name lost to time, but her story still breathing in my memory. She lived in a home where sadness had unpacked its bags. Her son had drifted into darkness, her husband had grown distant, and even her dog had stopped barking with joy. But she was not a woman of despair. She was a woman of devotion. One evening, with nothing but silence in her house and scripture in her heart, she took a cup of salt and walked through her rooms, not as a magician but as a mother, not with rituals but with reverence. She laid salt at the base of the front door and prayed, "Let no wicked thing enter here." She placed salt in her son's room and said, "God, restore what's been broken." She walked into her bedroom and prayed over her marriage, saying, "Let this bed be a place of love, not distance." She didn't shout. She didn't weep. But something shifted in that house, slowly, gently, steadily. Her son began to come home early. Her husband started speaking in full sentences again. And one day she noticed her old dog barking happily at the sunshine. And she smiled because she knew God had been there. Not because of the salt alone, but because the salt was married to her faith, and her faith reached the ears of the Almighty. Don't let anybody convince you that you need a pastor to speak over your home. You have power in your own tongue. Don't think you need a prophet to come anoint your doors. You have oil in your kitchen and salt in your pantry, and most importantly, you have the Holy Spirit dwelling within you. That is more than enough. When you use salt in prayer, you are doing what generations before you have done. You are walking in the steps of ancestors who didn't have therapists or books or bright lights. But they had faith, they had salt, they had prayer, and they made their homes holy with what they had. So go ahead and open your windows. Let the light in. Take a bowl of salt, and with every grain, let your soul speak. Say, "Bless this house." Say, "Purify this room." Say, "God, you are welcome here." And believe, truly believe, that the same God who met Moses on a mountain, who stood with Daniel in the lion's den, who sat beside Mary in her wonder, will also walk the rooms of your home and make it a place of peace. Salt is not superstition. It is symbol. Prayer is not empty words. It is invitation. Together they are declaration. They are agreement. They are a bridge between the seen and the unseen. So don't just season your food, beloved. Season your home, season your mind, season your life, not with bitterness, not with complaint, but with salt and with prayer, because when you do, heaven will hear, and God will answer, and peace, like a warm wind, will fill your home. Evil does not always walk through the front door with horns and a hiss. Sometimes it slithers in on the back of bitterness, draped in disguise, cloaked in confusion. Sometimes it wears the face of old regrets or whispers doubt when you are most wary. But my dear, you were not left defenseless. Oh no, God did not leave you exposed. He gave you wisdom. He gave you prayer. And He gave you something simple yet sacred. Salt. Salt in its quiet strength has long stood as a warrior in disguise. It does not brag, it does not boast, but it works. When spirits of unrest creep in, when shadows grow long inside your home, and you can feel the chill of something uninvited passing through your halls, that's when the salt comes in, not as superstition, but as symbol, as shield, as sacred substance. Our ancestors knew this well, long before there were psychiatrists and smartphones. There were women who woke at midnight with their Bibles open and salt in their hands. Men who rose before the sun to anoint their doorposts and say, "Not today, Satan, not in this house." They were poor in gold, but rich in discernment. They knew the weight of silence, the sound of spiritual unease, and they knew what to do about it. Salt, my love, was never just about seasoning. No, it was a signal, a sign to the darkness that this space has been claimed by light, that this ground is holy, that no demon, no dread, no dark energy has a right to linger here. You see, evil loves confusion. It feeds on chaos. It dances in the dust of a home that has forgotten how to pray. But when you stand up, when you take that salt in your hand and speak the word of God with authority, the atmosphere must shift. Let me tell you, I've seen it. I've seen a room thick with oppression cleared by a grandmother's quiet prayer and a circle of salt drawn on the floor. I've watched angry spirits lose their grip when someone with faith said, "Enough," and dropped a pinch of salt at the window sill, declaring, "This house belongs to the Lord." I've heard stories of children tormented in their sleep, only to find peace when their mothers anointed their beds with salt and whispered psalms until morning light broke through. This is not folklore. This is faith in action. God, in his endless creativity, uses the small things to confound the mighty. Remember how he used a slingshot and a stone to take down a giant. How he used 5 loaves and 2 fish to feed a multitude. In the same way, he takes that little bowl of salt sitting unnoticed on your kitchen shelf and gives it power, not by magic, but by meaning. He allows the salt to act as a barrier between what is blessed and what is cursed. You might say, can salt really do all that? And I would tell you, no, not on its own. But when you pair it with belief, with prayer, with authority, it becomes a vessel through which holiness flows. See, darkness respects territory. Spirits recognize spiritual ownership. And when you walk through your home with salt, declaring the presence of God, declaring that every room belongs to the Prince of Peace, you are marking your territory. Not in fear, but in faith. You are telling every lingering shadow, every unseen force, you have no power here, you have no place here, you have no peace here. And trust me, evil hears you. There are spirits that tremble not at your voice, but at the name you carry. When you walk in that authority, when you speak in that boldness, you don't just clean your house. You cleanse it. You don't just rearrange furniture. You realign the spiritual climate. You don't just decorate walls. You declare war on the things that were never meant to abide in your space. Salt, in this way, becomes both a purifier and a protector. It sits at your doorway like a silent sentinel. It rests in your corners like a watchman on the wall. It stands as a reminder that your home is not neutral ground. It is holy ground, and anything that does not serve the purpose of God must go. Now, don't go thinking you need a ritual or a robe. All you need is a heart full of belief and a spirit willing to speak. Take that salt in your hand and say, "In the name of Jesus, I cleanse this place. Every unclean spirit, every lingering darkness, be gone." Place it at the windows where confusion tries to peek in. Sprinkle it near the beds where nightmares have laid their head. Put it by the doors where trouble has knocked too many times. And then rest. Rest not because of superstition, but because of assurance. Rest knowing that heaven has heard, that angels have been dispatched, that the very presence of God now abides where fear once lived. Oh child, don't underestimate what God can do with a grain of salt and a whisper of prayer. Don't let the world convince you that only the grand and the glorious are holy. Sometimes holiness comes wrapped in quiet. Sometimes deliverance smells like salt and sounds like a sight. Sometimes power doesn't roar. It rests in stillness. So walk your home like you own it, because you do. Because your Father in heaven has given you the keys to bind and to loose, to stand and to speak, because you are not weak. You are not without weapons. You are armed with truth, wrapped in light, and anointed to protect the space you dwell in. Salt may be small, but it is mighty when wielded by someone who knows who they are. And you, beloved, are a child of God. A house is more than a roof and walls. It is a place where breath meets memory, where footsteps echo prayers whispered generations deep. A house is where your heart lets down its guard. It holds the quiet pain you dare not name and the joy that leaps up when no one is watching. But over time, like anything touched by this world, even a house can collect more than dust. It can gather grief. It can trap tension. It can carry echoes of arguments and the stale air of unspoken sadness. That's why every now and then a house needs cleansing, not just with brooms and buckets, but with spirit, with intention, with reverence, and that dear heart is where salt steps in. You see, salt is not just for flavoring food. It is not just a seasoning, it is a sacred purifier. Salt is ancient, older than the pyramids, older than the written word, older than the hands that pluck it from the earth. It has been used by prophets and priests, by mothers and midwives. It's one of those rare gifts from God that lives in the physical but operates in the spiritual. There comes a time in life when you walk through your own home and sense something is not quite right. The air is heavy. The light doesn't feel as bright. Your spirit feels crowded, though the house is empty. You wake up tired. You sleep without peace. And though the floors are clean and the counters shine, there's a feeling, a residue in the atmosphere that no mop can remove. That is when you must cleanse with salt. Not for ritual, not for spectacle, but for blessing, for realignment, for restoration. When you walk through your home with salt, you are not decorating. You are dedicating. You are telling God, this house is yours. This is where I raise my children. This is where I cry when I'm alone. This is where I rest my head and pray for morning. Come dwell here. Come be here. And God, in His majesty, beds low when He hears such honest invitation. I have seen women, wise beyond books, sprinkle salt in the corners of their rooms while humming old hymns. I have watched men strong and silent press salt into their door frames with their eyes closed and their lips moving in silent prayer. I have felt it myself. That shift in the air, that sweet presence that comes when a house is blessed with sincerity and salt. Salt, when used with love, purges what does not belong. It dries up the remnants of conflict. It lifts heaviness from the walls. It absorbs bitterness lingering in the air. You see, salt is not afraid of darkness. It walks straight into it and declares, this is holy ground now. It finds the places forgotten, the back corners, the closets, the shadows, and it blesses them. It blesses them with simplicity, with quiet authority. And don't you worry about whether you're doing it right. God is not checking your ritual. He is listening to your heart. He is drawn to the one who says, Lord, I don't know all the scriptures, but I know your name. I know you are the God who sees, the God who cleanses, the God who makes broken places whole again. That is enough. That has always been enough. Take a bowl of salt and walk your home. Speak softly or speak boldly, but speak with truth. Say, every room in this house belongs to peace. Say, let every window let in light, not fear. Say, let no bitterness stay in this kitchen where I feed my family. Let no strife sleep in these bedrooms. Let no despair rest on my sofa or at my table. And then, beloved, feel the blessing settle. Feel it in your bones, in the quiet that follows. It will not come with thunder. It will come like dew, like a stillness, like the softest silence that says, I am here. That is the voice of God. That is the echo of blessing. That is what salt unlocks when you offer it with a heart turned heavenward. We live in a world that tells you to buy more to be whole, to fill your home with shiny things. But I tell you this, your house does not need more objects. It needs more presence. It needs more peace. And that comes not from the store, but from the Spirit, from the way you welcome God into your space, from the way you bless each room with intention, with gratitude, with salt. Let your home be a sanctuary. Let it be a refuge from the noise of the world. Let it be the place where children feel safe, where laughter lives, where your spirit can breathe again. And let salt help you get there. It won't fix everything, no. It won't erase every burden, but it will shift the spiritual climate. It will create room for God to move. It will remind you that even in the smallest acts, there is holiness. And isn't that the miracle? That a little bowl of salt guided by love can do such mighty things. So walk. Walk through your home like a priest in your own temple. Bless your space. Honor it. Speak over it. Let salt carry your prayers into the walls. Let the rooms remember your words long after you've fallen asleep, because God doesn't need stained glass to show up. He doesn't need incense or incense holders. All he needs is you, a willing heart, a sacred gesture, a whisper of prayer carried on the back of a simple act. Yes, salt cleanses. Yes, salt blesses. But more than that, salt reminds. It reminds you that you are not powerless, that your home is not forgotten, that heaven still listens, that holiness still lives, in your voice, in your hands, in the way you care for the place you call home. So let the salt speak. Let it declare what your spirit already knows. This house is clean. This house is covered. This house is blessed. And let it be so. It is one thing to hold a gift in your hands, and quite another to know how to use it with reverence. Many have held salt, poured it, pinched it, tossed it in pots. But few have understood the fullness of its purpose. Fewer still have honored it for what it truly is, a tool in God's hands, a quiet vessel of His divine power. Salt is not just something we taste. It is something we trust. Something we use not in haste or superstition, but in stillness, with intention, as a whisper of faith. It carries no magic, no charm, but it carries meaning. And when it is wielded in the presence of God, it becomes sacred. It becomes holy. Now, child, if you are to use salt for God's glory, you must first quiet your spirit. You must lay down the burdens of hurry and enter the moment with heart bowed low. For God does not honor performance. He honors purity, the purity of motive, the sincerity of heart, the openness to believe that even the smallest gesture, done in faith, can move mountains unseen. Take your salt, whether coarse or fine, whether from the sea or the shaker, and hold it in your palm. Let it rest there like a prayer waiting to be spoken. Do not rush. Do not doubt. Speak over it. Say, Lord, I thank you for your wisdom. I thank you for this tool. Use it not for my power, but for your purpose. Let every grain serve you. That's the first step. Not the act, but the attitude. Not the salt, but the spirit behind it. You see, God's glory is not summoned by the hands, but by the heart. And when your heart is turned to Him, the simplest actions become declarations of faith. Now walk through your home, not to perform, but to proclaim. Start at your doorway, the entrance to all that enters and leaves. Sprinkle a small amount of salt at the threshold, not like one tossing rice at a wedding, but like one placing a blessing brick by brick. Speak as you do it. Say, Lord, may only what is of you come through this door. May what is not of you be stopped here. Let the salt stand as witness. Move through each room not as a tourist, but as a caretaker. In the living room, where conversations rise and fall, where laughter and arguments live side by side, bless that space. Place a pinch of salt in the corner and speak life. Say, let this be a room of joy. Let heaviness have no seat here. Go to the kitchen where nourishment is prepared. Salt already lives there, but now let it speak differently. Lay your hands upon it. Say, Lord, as I season food, season my words. As I feed my body, feed my soul. Let God use the everyday for the extraordinary. In bedrooms, where we rest and dream and wrestle with thoughts unspoken, place salt beneath the bed, beneath the pillow, in a tiny bowl if you wish. Whisper softly, "Let this be a chamber of peace. Let angels stand guard here. Let the night be holy. Don't you know God walks softly through places we sleep? Don't you know He listens for our sighs? Even in the bathroom, where the world says nothing sacred happens, you must know. Every room that holds you holds Him. Say, let this be a place of cleansing in body and in spirit. And then, when you have walked every room, return to where you began. Close your eyes. Lift your voice and say, Lord, let this house not just be mine. Let it be yours. Let every grain of salt I placed be a flag planted for your kingdom. Let your glory rest here. Let your presence dwell. And then, be still. Feel the shift, not in the furniture, not in the walls, but in the atmosphere. A peace will come light and low, like a breeze through lace curtains. That is how God arrives. Not always with thunder, but with truth. Not always in volume, but in value. Now, dear one, there is another way to use salt for God's glory, and that is in service. Yes, in the kitchen and the rooms, but also in your relationships. Salt is not only for cleansing, it is for preserving. Preserve peace, preserve love, preserve hope in your words. Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth." That means your being, your kindness, your convictions are meant to bring flavor, to preserve truth, to heal and not harm. When someone is bitter, you can be salt. When someone is fading, you can be salt. When the world is rotting with anger and confusion, you can be salt. That too gives God glory. That too is sacred. But beware, salt that loses its savor is useless. So do not be one who sprinkles salt and speaks doubt. Do not bless your home and curse your neighbor. Do not pray for peace and stir strife. Salt cannot purify a place if your heart is still polluted. You must live what you speak. You must love what you cleanse. And know this, salt does not need applause. It does not shine. It does not shout. It simply is. Quiet, faithful, ever working. Let your life be like that. Let your faith be like that. Glorify God in secret, and He will reward you openly. Some will say, "Isn't this just symbolic?" And to that, I say, yes, it is. But symbols matter. The cross is symbolic. Communion is symbolic. Baptism is symbolic. Yet in each, heaven meets earth. Don't ever underestimate what God can do with a symbol surrendered to Him. So use your salt. Use it in prayer. Use it in peace. Use it in praise. Use it with trembling hands and honest hope. And as you do, know that heaven smiles. Know that angels listen. Know that you are not silly. You are sacred. You are taking what is natural and inviting the supernatural. You are opening the door not for superstition, but for sanctification. Let the salt glorify God. Let your hands bless what they touch. Let your home become a sanctuary. And let every grain remind you even the smallest things, when placed in the hands of God, become holy.